I've got two things going for me this afternoon. Number one, writer's block. Number two, about 15 minutes before my next meeting. And because of that little bit of writer's block, I thought today I would record a quick video to talk to you about what I'm thinking about right now. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you so much for listening and for reading my blog content and engaging with me over on Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. It just continues to astound me how folks are engaging with this topic, because I feel kind of like I'm out on a limb here as a guy talking about politics a little bit differently, talking about how you can engage with elected officials a little bit differently, trying to get away from partisanship and just focus on how can we as individuals participate in the process a little bit better to help our issues go a little bit further. And in that work, I oftentimes am focused on talking to volunteer advocates, and we often focus on how can we influence the people in those positions of power? How can we get those decision makers to take action on the things we want them to do? Well, today I want to flip the script a little bit. I want to turn it around. I want to put on my former congressional staffer hat and share with you how I would prepare to engage with the local community when I was a congressional staffer. And I think that's important. I think there's value here for the average advocate, because so often we are focused on moving the needle for our issues that we forget the other side of the table is often trying to move the needle on things they care about as well. They're often trying to advance their own agenda with local buy-in. And if we fail to acknowledge that, we may miss opportunities to engage with them in a profitable way. So I want to take you back in the Wayback Machine just a few years ago when I was a congressional staffer working in a congressional district office. And I want to talk to you about how I would prepare as a staffer for engaging with the local community. And here's the caveat. Every member of Congress is different. They set their priorities differently. They engage with their local communities differently. So this isn't a hard, fast set of rules. It's just anecdotal evidence of how one staffer used to prepare and how you could use that information to help your agenda in the future. And before we get started, let's do a quick refresh on what congressional offices look like. When I say member of Congress and their team, most people think of either the Washington, D.C. office, where legislation is written and introduced in the halls of Congress and committee hearings and all that, or they think of campaign work. And that's great. Those are the visible offices, right? Those are the things we see on TV. But there's a third branch of a congressional office that often goes overlooked. And that's the home office. Some people call it a district office. Depending on your state, it may be called a state office, especially if you're talking about your U.S. senators, they'll refer to their state offices. And these are the local footprint for that nationally elected figure. So these are where they set roots in the community as a base of operations of sorts to be the facilitation point of engaging with the community. So that's where the member of Congress will have a separate office back home to do meetings. It's where they'll have a small staff of folks who are focused either on district outreach or constituent services, helping folks navigate the bureaucracy of the federal government. And that office is oftentimes overlooked because it's not really the sexy part of politics. It's not the stuff that gets headlines. It's not where you go make an inflammatory statement on a hot issue. That almost always happens out in DC. It's not where you're on the campaign trail and engaging with local media. This is more like the trench work area, right? This is a small group of dedicated individuals who are there to help identify problems and try to help that member of Congress and the rest of the staff work through how to address problems that are important to the local community. And it matters. It matters a lot, because the vast majority of members of Congress, in my experience, especially here in Ohio, are heavily focused on delivering value back to their district through those district offices, whether that's through direct casework or through targeted outreach into the community that informs their decision-making process on what they can do to, say, bring grant dollars back or introduce legislation that can address localized issues in a national way. So it's where the rubber meets the road. The real value, and especially for volunteer advocates like you, is that this is oftentimes an office where you get away from partisanship. You're still involved in politics, right? And a lot of people say they hate politics, but really what they're saying is they hate partisanship. And those district offices, their official work, they're not campaign related. Those are folks who are focused on leveraging official resources to do official work. And because of that, there's often this break, a slight separation from the hyper-partisanship that we see in the media. So this is a great place for you as a volunteer advocate to engage directly with folks who have the ear of the member of Congress and help them understand your challenges. The flip side of that is they're trying to do the same thing with the local community. They're trying to get engaged with local influencers who have their thumb on the pulse of what's important to people around the district. And the district that I was working in for the member of Congress, they represented 7 counties. They had urban, suburban, and a lot of rural area. They had every industry you could imagine. Insurance, healthcare, banking had a heavy footprint. In fact, JP Morgan Chase had more people working in that district than anywhere else in the world. But they also had heavy agriculture footprint with corn and small grain production and animal agriculture. We had manufacturing. We had tourism in the service industry. We had heavy university footprint. So if you're looking for kind of a microcosm district of the entire country, it was a great district to work in because you name it, we touched on those issues. So we had a lot of ways that we could engage with the community. The problem is that when you have so many choices, it can be really difficult to narrow down what's important. So that's where building proactive relationships with those local communities can be a real value add to the member of Congress and to their staff, because that helps filter out what's really important. Because we could sit around all day and talk about the inflammatory issues that you see on CNN and Fox News and every other news channel, right? Instead, what matters to people at the local level? And how I would prepare for that as a staffer is I would take a shotgun approach, right? Initially, where when we had a new area of the district or there was a new type of group we were trying to engage with, it was quantity. How many events can we have? How many times can I have a physical footprint in a different community over the course of a month? But as you get established, you realize that there also needs to be a quality element to that. So as I developed as a congressional staffer, instead of being on the road all the time, I found value in an approach that our team developed internally, which was to have advisory councils, to have esse-specific conversations with folks who care about that issue. So you would have an agriculture advisory group, you'd have a veterans advisory group, you would have, all of these different advisory groups, and different folks on the team would manage those. But on top of that, I wanted to take it to a different level. So within those advisory groups, as a staffer individually, I would reach out to the members of those groups and target them to have hard conversations about what's happening in the district. And that was very informal. And I wanted to share that with you today because that informality can be really beneficial to you as a volunteer advocate. And just as much as you're trying to build credibility with those staffers and those members of Congress, I want you to hear from me, we were trying to do the same with you. We were trying to establish credibility by showing up, shotgun approach, right? By targeting later on and really diving into deeper conversations. And it's important for you to hear that, because when you get a call out of the blue from someone you met at a rally or at a meeting of the Chamber of Commerce or at your local Rotary Club, I don't want you to dismiss that. I don't want you to think of that person as just a staffer. I want you to think of that informal opportunity as an opportunity to build credibility in a different way, where you don't necessarily need to focus on your issue, but give a damn about what they're asking you about. And the more you do that, the more you insert yourself into those opportunities, the more often you're going to get called. And I need you to hear that from me, because these congressional staffers and members of Congress aren't as unreachable as you may think. And that's probably not a popular opinion, but the reality is they want it. They're hungry for the engagement with you. They want to know what's important because it's going to help them do their work better. And I hope that resonates with you. I hope that hearing that process, that thought process of mine, that, yeah, we wanted to get as much as possible, but as we develop, as we grow in the community, we're trying to reach out to specific people to act as that filter. That's a moment of empowerment for you as a volunteer advocate, and you have to seize those moments. You never know when it's going to happen. You never know when that phone's going to ring. But the more opportunities you give yourself to be involved in other issues, the more times you're going to be able to bring your issue to the table as well, because you're going to establish credibility, and the nature of human relationships takes hold. The more you engage with folks, the more you honor your promises, the more you contribute and add value to their agenda, the more they're going to want to engage with you. It's simple relationship building. We forget that way too many times as volunteer advocates. And my charge to you today is to not let yourself forget that as we go into the summer months. Because if you are in the fight on an issue right now, if you are engaging on a bill or regulatory issue, you're coming up on a real sweet spot opportunity with those district offices, and it's called August recess. And August recess is when members of Congress go back to their district and they do tours and they have meetings with constituents and they march in parades on the campaign side and they do all that stuff too. But there are a ton of opportunities for you and your cause to engage with them when they are back home in the district. How do you get there? Well, you start building that credibility. You start going to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. You go to the Rotary meeting where they're speaking. You engage with those staffers and you start trying to find opportunities to build those relationships. Invite that staffer to have a cup of coffee. Invite that staffer to come out and see your business without the member of Congress. Invite them to come to your nonprofit and see the work you do. Do that with the staffer. Build credibility, build opportunities like that now, and leverage those for an ask for the future. Because as soon as they see that you're legit, as soon as they see that you are doing something valuable in the community, you are increasing the likelihood that they're going to reach back to you when you say, hey, we'd love to have the member of Congress come out in August and visit us and see it for themselves. You may not get them this August, but you've put the ask out there now. You've established a goal of, we want to have them come do a tour. And guess what? They're back in the district a lot. You have a lot of these opportunities to engage with them. Use the calendar to your advantage now. Do the thing that other advocacy groups aren't doing. Don't focus on the member, focus on the staff. Focus on that district staff. Get them engaged in the work that you're doing. You might just move them from being friendly to your issue to being a champion for your cause. And that is a big win. If you like this video and want more of it, let me know. Always trying to deliver content in the way that makes the most sense possible. With 2 kids, writing is definitely what I prefer because I can do it late at night, but sometimes you hit these writer's blocks. And I hope you enjoyed this quick recording and found value in it. And if you do, or if you don't, leave me a note, leave me a comment, let me know. But just let me say once again, thank you. I am every day amazed by the joy that putting this content out has brought into my life, and hopefully together we can continue to move you along to become a better advocate for the stuff that you care about, because that's why I'm here. If we all get just a little bit better at this advocacy process, we might just make our politics a little more palatable. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you all soon.